Diego, and you're tuned in to Breaking Down the Breakdown. On today's episode, we have Anthony Lau, and we talk about motivations and failures and just how exactly this shapes your journey towards your goal. What's up, people?
What up, yeah?
All right.
Great introduction, great start.
Right? Isn't it just amazing? Okay, I am so sorry that I have not been around. You know, the holidays are here. My OCD was acting up. That should not be an excuse. We'll get to that another time. But, you know, sometimes life is just life. And, you know, things just happen. But whatever. You know what? I'm back. We thought the season was over. It was not. I just needed to take a quick break. Yes, it was like maybe a month long, but whatever. Today, I'm breaking down the breakdown, which do you indeed know. I have one of my closest friends, one of the people that I know for a long ass time, join us today. Welcome, Anthony. Clap
Hello.
for Anthony. How are you, dude?
Round of applause.
Right?
Good.
What is good, my guy?
Yo, man, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I still kind of wish that, you know, we would be able to meet up in person and do this, you know?
Same. Honestly, you know, we had that chance and then we didn't take it, and now everywhere in Ontario is on lockdown. And if you were if you were seen here, you would be in trouble. So fuck that. I'm not paying no fine.
Yep.
And I had my COVID scare last week, so
oh yeah, oh man.
that was something else. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I want to say thank you for actually reaching out. I've known Anthony here for how long now? Like what, 2011? 2012?
Something like that. It's been like 6-7 years, maybe longer.
I think because it was my first year. It was your first year, right?
It was my first year.
Yeah, it was
a long time ago.
It was a long ass time.
Oh my god.
It really was. Holy shit. But anyway, I'm really excited to have Anthony on the show because it's rare for me to have somebody on here that I actually really, really know and knows me inside out as well. And today we are going to talk about a topic that I feel like a lot of people either has a lot of right now or started to really lose during the pandemic. And that is the M word. What is the M word? Maturity. No, kidding. It's motivation, guys. Motivation, right?
That's correct.
It's funny because for a lot of people, it's not a very touchy subject. You know, people can say, yeah, I'm motivated, or no, I'm not that motivated. And that's that. But for a lot of us, we actually fail to understand that maybe 90% of the time, motivation is where we get the power to actually finish everything and accomplish everything that we had set ourselves. I mean, isn't that what motivation means, right?
Yeah.
And people just think of it as like a fancy word. Like they say, like, I'm just tired, you know? It's like, no, I just don't have motivation today. And it's like, you really got to start being mindful because you need to realize that if you don't have motivation today, there's a good chance you're not going to have motivation for the next few weeks. And that's right. Is a scary thing in itself, right? So Anthony over here has some very interesting points about motivation. What made you want to talk about this? It's actually one of my biggest things. Like, it was great for me to hear somebody want to talk about, hey, I want to, talk about this topic. And it's like, a lot of people just say, just get motivated, or, it's okay, you can get motivated next time. So for you, what made it so important?
I think during this whole time, especially in COVID, especially being a business owner and a freelancer, motivation, and I'm relatively new to it, motivation is this thing that has in the past been elusive to me a little bit. I'd have spurts of motivation to accomplish things and finish things like by the end of the night or something. take university, for example, I'd finish my essays always the night before.
Right.
Because the motivation for me was I have a deadline and I need to get the grade.
Right.
But during COVID, it's especially working as somebody who works person to person, it's I couldn't work, and so motivation was suddenly no longer just something I could relax about, because even before working kind of 9-to-5 jobs or any other jobs, I don't necessarily need to have motivation, right? Because I can just put in the hours and I'll get paid. And that changed when I had to even reframe my mindset into thinking like, what am I going to do if I am not if I'm not able to find work, right? If I'm lazy, and that's always been the problem. If I'm lazy, then I'm not going to succeed, and the responsibility is all on me.
That is, I can't like that's why one of the best ways with that. Before I move on, I do want to ask, well, what do you do so that everybody else can kind of get a scope of what you do?
Sure. I started out, to be honest, I do a little bit of everything. Officially right now, my business is photography. That's the main thing. But it also includes art direction, and it could very well include writing in the future, as well as videography. So I'm kind of expanding my skill sets right now, and making sure, that I'm even putting in the work to make sure that when I'm ready to release those services, that it's going to be
gonna be good. It's gonna be lit.
It's going to be bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I find it very admiring that, like what you said, you're a photographer, right? How do you even become a photographer during COVID, right? It's like, it's one of those things where you have to be present in the same space, and that is not allowed.
Yeah. I think that really had me down for most of this COVID period. I mean, we just entered another lockdown, but in the beginning, it was kind of nice because it let me be lazy.
Right.
It was like, I can't work because I can't work with models and like clients, so I can just relax and not think about anything. But I think as we have a vaccine now, and the world is it's changed for sure. But as we're starting to be able to leave our houses again after this lockdown, I hope, I'm slowly waking up again, and I've been trying to take, the thing is, if we're talking about motivation, during this time where I wasn't able to work on my business, I'm still trying to work on my business. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to keep myself motivated by, I wake up and I just moved, but back when I was in my old place, I'd wake up every morning and I'd make myself a cup of coffee. I'd get changed, I'd have breakfast, and then I sit down and I get to work, whatever work was that day. So whether that's working on something creative, so just doodling, or whether that's working on music for that day, or whether it's trying to figure out what to do with photography. I'm still working on skills that will help me if this ends, and also pivoting to see what I can do if this continues for a long time.
I mean, wow. All right. That's why I said it's admirable, because for most of us, it stopped there. It stopped with, I'm going to get changed and then I'm going to sit. And then that's it. I'm going to sit.
No, I mean, that's the thing too, right? Like, I'm a super lazy person. So a lot of days it did, especially near like the past, like 2 months or something,
Yeah.
it was kind of me getting dressed and sitting there. Some days I wouldn't get dressed because it's kind of like this. It's sometimes like this marathon of, you're holding, you're kind of fighting against, this ease of laziness that COVID
Right.
is bringing about. You're home, you don't have work, you don't have to do anything, and you're kind of alone in that, right? Because it's your job to motivate yourself. You don't have a boss telling you what to do. You don't have, and even if you're not a freelancer, that's still the same if you're working, hourly jobs where you have cut hours or something, right?
Right.
I remember when I had hourly work as well, I'd have weeks where I'm like, literally, I'd wake up, I'd eat, I'd shower, and then I'd get it back in bed. I wouldn't change, and I'd just watch TV until I fell asleep. I'd wake up, watch some more, and then fall asleep again. you know? And the only things that got me out of bed was, oh, I have work tomorrow.
Right.
So I definitely have had those days during COVID, especially the past like 2 months or something.
Of course.
But I think it really, for me, it was about changing my mindset to not fight what was happening anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and instead trying to adapt. And I think for me, I am somebody who, it takes me a while to change my mindset,
Right.
and I'm glad I did,
Do
because
you
now
feel
I'm like,
like
okay,
I it's I'm just gonna say this because I know you, right? When we were in
yeah.
university, like, the shit that we
Oh boy.
pulled, like we would just
Yeah.
literally, we had motivation, but it was in the wrong
Yeah.
places, right? So it was one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and you know what? Actually, let me take that back. Let me just skirt reverse, like, because it's not really in the sense that it's in the wrong place. It's just that I remember you and I would always just want to sing, right? You and I would always just want to do
Yeah.
covers, or like, you
Yeah.
know, not once, actually, funny enough, not once did we try to write a song together. I
Yeah. That's true.
That's very interesting for me. We had all of
Yeah.
that time, but not once did it come across our
Mm-hmm.
minds. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in that sense, we have evolved, like we've
Mm-hmm.
grown up. And I feel like we started taking on a lot more responsibility. And maybe that's why the way that we think now is the way it is, right? Like maybe that's why the way you approach things now is the way it is. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
do have to ask, do you feel like had this pandemic happened at that moment,
Mm.
you would have the same kind of mentality. You would have the same kind of approach, right? Like, had
Yeah.
this pandemic happened when you were there, would you be able to change your mindset the way you have now?
Right. Very good question. I honestly don't know if I could have. I think um, it took a lot of growing
Right,
to get here. And I think it also took a lot of opportunities
right,
that I was lucky enough to be presented with,
right,
um, for me to even be able to be mindful enough to acknowledge that, oh, I'm stuck.
yeah,
And to be able to be like, oh, now I need to change and put in the effort and work to
right,
even know how to change.
yeah,
Um, I think I definitely, university, I probably would have been like, because I had no greater motivation,
yep, I get
right? Like my livelihood now depends on me being able to change and adapt. Whereas in university, it's like, I could stay, I had my rent covered,
yeah.
and I had my bills covered, and I had, loans. So I had money.
I'm dead. Well, I can't sit here and lie that that wasn't the same for me,
Right?
right? Like I stayed in that
Yeah,
shithole for 5 years, paying
exactly.
$250 a month because I'm like, well, because
Yeah,
this means I can get more money. Oh my
yeah.
god,
And like
that's fucked.
it, yeah, uh, I still honestly sometimes like wish I I was back there in that time of life. because it was stress free. It was no responsibilities, right?
Right,
Like
right.
everybody else got to decide. Like my bosses would get to decide my schedule, right? Somebody else gets to decide what I have to do for the week. For the most part, like essays. So that's my professors, or
Right.
when I'm in for work, um, and that's that's easy. Now it's like I gotta make my own schedules for and make sure it's productive and make sure it's not easy.
But you know, I in this sense, I do have to say this. I feel like our backgrounds kind of help with that now, right? Because if there's
Hmm.
one thing that we notice about these things, and I'm not saying all people are like this, right? It's just that it is so prevalent with people who have gone through the same things that we have. It's the motivating factor sometimes, or the lack of the motivating factor, is pressure.
Mm.
And and it's very interesting that you said earlier with, you knew that everything was covered, so you were just kind of like,
Hmm.
I'm a chill. And now it's like
Yeah,
you actually fucking, if you don't work today, you're not
yeah,
gonna eat next week, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's one of those things where it's very interesting to look at, because there is a huge, you know, uh, it's not so much a debate, because it's, well, maybe it is, but there are people who, I'm going to say this, and this is, I don't want it to sound controversial. It's not about that, right? Let's say people during COVID times right now who
Mhm,
are unemployed and are getting CRB or
mhm,
employment insurance,
mhm,
right? It's interesting now to kind of talk about this, because there are people that are on the other side of the fence saying, if you keep on giving them free government cheese, they're not going to want to work. They're going to
mhm,
stay lazy. They're going to, they're going to feel like, well, whatever, like I'm getting free money from the government anyway. I'm not going to try to look for work, right?
mhm,
And majority of these people, I feel like, are the ones that are kind of like business owners, who have had to work for themselves, who are like, like, oh, like I
mhm.
work like 20 hours a day, like these people, like
Yeah,
you're giving them free money. Of course, they're not going to want to come work at the establishment,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then there's the other side of the fence people don't understand. And, you know, I'm on this side of the fence in the sense that, I have mental health issues that I'm dealing with. And it is
Mm,
very difficult for
mhm,
me to go to work, even though, like I've gotten marginally better from the last time. you know,
mhm.
I can go to work, right? But the risk
Yeah.
with me going to work all the time is that I'm gonna end up with, it's hard to explain it, right? I don't want to get into details, right? But that's why I have to ease
Yeah.
myself into going to work. And by doing this, I actually can't afford some of the things. And that's
Mm,
why I have to be on employment insurance, right?
mhm. Yeah.
And it's funny, because those people who seem to be such a great source of motivation to just go to fucking work and not get government money, they fail to see that there's another side to this whole thing. And it's people like me who
Mhm,
needs
mhm.
that kind of government assistance, because we
For
just
sure.
can't get it,
Mhm.
right? And
Definitely.
you're probably sitting there wondering, what the fuck does this have to do with motivation? And let me tell you something right now. Because of the government assistance that I'm getting, because I
Mm.
can't go to work as much, it's actually motivating me to really start building on my career,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's that like you said earlier, with the whole, when we were in university, we had shit covered. That's why we didn't
Yeah.
feel motivated to do anything much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like if there is a way where we can just kind of connect with these people, I was gonna say kids, I'm like, no, that's kind of rude. Connect with, like people who were in the same situation as you and I were, where we thought things were covered in university,
Mhm,
but somehow
mhm,
kind of give them the input of, hey, I know you feel unmotivated to do your schoolwork because you're being covered right now. Why don't you put that focus on motivating yourself to do your you know, like potentially what you want to do is your either side career or your actual passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if we had that talk, if somebody had just
Yeah.
come to us at that point in our lives, you and I would not be sitting here
Right.
talking about it like this.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been, I think it would have been um, more eye-opening for
Right.
sure. Um, I think it definitely would have made even the transition that I had to have a lot easier, a lot less stressful.
There you
Um,
go, right?
I do think that like who I was back then though, with everything covered,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be receptive to it in
Right.
the same way. In the same way, because
Because
I
you
had
had
things
to
covered.
go through what you had to go through, right?
Yeah,
To
exactly,
appreciate it. But do
exactly.
you think there could be a way that we could somehow pry that open and kind of
Hmm.
instill this kind of motivation that they don't need to go through what we went through? Because a lot of people,
Right.
you know, for a lot of us, we say like, yeah, you know what, it's understandable because you didn't go through it, so you don't get it, right?
Hmm.
But I feel like there's got to be a way in which a person does have to actually personally go through it to get it, because half the time
Hmm.
it's very painful.
Hmm.
All right. It is so detrimental to somebody's mental health, right?
Hmm.
And we have to be in therapy just to cope with what we went through, even though, yes, at the end of the day, we are such better people for it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't the goal, at least for me, I feel like with my situation, what I went through, I wish
Hmm.
there's a way I can impart knowledge on people that before they end up going through what I went through, they would know about
Hmm.
it and they would
Hmm.
literally understand it without having to go through it.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part of a lot of stories and fables. You think about how children grow up and how we
Yeah.
teach them, right? You
Yeah.
can tell a child that you shouldn't touch the stove because it's going to hurt, right? But it's not until they actually touch it when it's hot
Right.
that they learn not to do it. Um, I think that is a very tough part, and I find that the only thing we can realistically do um, is stuff like this, where you're making it available, you're making it you're making it easy to access for people to have this motivational conversation, to hear what it's done to other people, to yourself, and why it's important. But I think one thing that um, I think holds true is that it's always up to the individual.
Right.
Um, it can never be beaten into somebody, um, and even if it is beaten into somebody, it rarely sticks or ends up being a resentment or fear response rather than a healthy one. Um, and I think I wish there was a way to be able to reach, like
Yeah.
university
Oh yeah.
Anthony and Steven, right? And like
Yeah.
just be like, hey man, you have so much time right now to work
Right.
on this.
No fucking
Um,
wasted going to soccer every
yeah.
Thursday night doing karaoke.
But that's the thing too. I think honestly, I didn't even know I was into photography until later on. And I think that's part of the experience thing too, of knowing what you're passionate about.
Mhm.
I think I was somebody um, who in university I felt kind of lost because I didn't know what I really liked. Like I knew I liked music. I love music and I
Yes.
love singing
Oh,
and
for
making
sure.
music with people. But I never felt like this is where I'm going to be making my money. Because I knew I loved it and I knew I didn't want to make the goal of what I love to be music. And it wasn't until I started photography where I was like, I love this as well, but it's not in the same way as
Yeah.
music, where it's like I'm not in the shower, wishing I could take photos right now. I might be thinking of photo ideas, but
Right.
I'm wherever I am, walking down the streets in public or in the shower, I'm gonna be singing.
That's true.
That's a different kind of
I was gonna
love.
be like, you don't
Yeah.
take photos in the shower? What kind of person? I'm kidding. Oh Lord.
Oh,
I just
oh God.
exposed myself. Oh no.
Follow me on.
Follow me on. I'm not gonna say it. No, but but with that said, right? Do you feel like the greatest motivator truly is the experience of going through failure?
Hmm. I think that's one of the. I think that's one of the failure is one of the things that can be harnessed into motivation.
Right.
I think it's hard to say that's the greatest motivator, though, or greatest contributor, just because I know a lot of people, myself included, who would see failure and fail and then just stay down
Exactly, because you get this.
and never pick it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think seeing that kind of failure and for me, how it coincides with motivation is changing my mindset to see failure as more of a challenge,
Right.
to do better,
Right.
than it is a reason to stay down and just not get up and not do
Exactly.
better.
Right. Which then brings me to my next point.
Hmm.
This could mean that motivation, I mean, obviously it consists of a lot of other factors and aspects, right? Failure being one of them, right?
Mhm.
But it's like what you said, and you said it perfectly. There's a danger with that in a sense that people can get discouraged and they'll just stay down. Now, once they fail, they're like,
Mhm.
nope, I'm a failure. That's it. This isn't for me, right? Maybe we are onto something in terms of kind of crafting the perfect way to motivate somebody, right?
Right.
And I'm
Make
not
sure
sure.
they fail.
Well, it's not about making sure that they fail, but maybe it's making sure that they have the right tools to handle failure,
Hmm.
right? Maybe, kind
That's
of
true.
scaling back, the knowledge that we have to impart on them is not so much, here's how to motivate you. Then maybe
Hmm.
it's, here's what you need to know about failure and what it
Yeah.
actually means.
Yeah.
So that when,
Demystify it.
right? Exactly. So that when they do come across failure, they will remember, wait a minute, this doesn't mean, it means I failed like something, but it doesn't mean it's the end of things, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe it's about, because even like at school, right? When we, like grade school,
Mm.
failing something is already frowned upon. Failing something, our
Yeah.
parents get so fucking pissed that it's like, you
Yeah.
fucking fail. How the fuck can you fail this shit? It's like, you're in grade school. Yo, like when I got into grade 9 and I failed grade 9 math twice,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
people were like, how the fuck do you fail grade 9 math twice? And I felt
Yeah.
like, holy shit, well, math's just not for me then. And
Yeah.
literally after that, I just didn't want to do math,
Yeah.
and it's like, honestly, and it's funny because I can, I was gonna say add. Well, no, I can add or multiply or like divide things faster than other people that I know. But it ends there. My skill ends there.
Yeah.
When I was
Yeah.
when I was before grade 9, I was actually really good at math. I was in math
Hmm.
contests, but because of
Yeah.
my failure,
Hmm.
instead of realizing that I was just lazy, I just didn't
Yeah.
study in grade 9, I
Yeah.
made myself believe that it's because I was really bad at math.
Hmm. Yeah.
And because of that, there were things that I couldn't do anymore, right? I couldn't continue with marketing. Remember when I did marketing in university? And I was
Yeah.
fucking so good at it that I didn't even have the textbook. Like, how do you get a B plus in marketing and not even actually have the materials to
Yeah.
study for? You know what I mean, right? And that for me, I was like,
Yeah.
holy
Yeah.
shit, maybe I should be in marketing. And then third year comes, I wasn't allowed to take marketing because I didn't have advanced functions. I didn't have the math
Mm.
components I needed.
Yeah.
And this all stemmed from the fact that I thought I was a failure. and I didn't want to take any.
Yeah. Hmm. That's definitely one of the things that growing up, um, it's demotivating to
Right.
fail in a way where you feel. I think sometimes it's good to feel stupid, but I also think that when you have somebody um, who can be really good at something, to knock them down and make sure they stay down is not
Yeah.
always the answer. Um, and this is now venturing into more of like an education system in Canada talk. Um, but it's hard for to be able to even notice that um, when you have like a class of like when you have like 30 kids in a class, right?
Right.
Um, but that's also one of the things that I I've met people who are able to have that kind of self-study thing where it's like they fail and they might not, they're good at it, but they fail and then they're like, oh, let me do better
Right.
from very early on in
Right.
their life.
Exactly. Right.
And I'm confused because sometimes I think, oh, maybe it's people who are naturally just, that's their personality, they're born with that kind of thing. And
Right.
then there's another part of me that's like, is this also upbringing, right? Is this how parents are
Exactly.
teaching their kids to fail? Um,
And that's what we're on to, right? It's relationships, right?
mhm,
This is how relationships affect motivations,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I know that was something you wanted to talk about. It's exactly
Hmm.
how, and it's not limited to your significant other, right? But more so,
Hmm.
the kind of environment, what kind of relationship have you crafted
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
allowed you to keep or like even boost up that motivation, or on the other end of the spectrum, demotivate you from doing things, right?
Mm, yeah. I think something that's been helpful that I was fortunate enough to understand this from a young age, that you kind of become who you are surrounded by,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think I was fortunate enough, I say I'm fortunate enough to understand that at a young age because since I was young, I had people whose values were um, what mine are now.
Right.
And that is their values lied in understanding themselves, understanding their motivators, their fears, understanding the world around them, and not just in a financial way where it's like my whole purpose in life is to make money, right? It's not that those weren't the values. It was more, those are important, but
Right.
the values were in how can I be the best me? How can I be? How can I understand myself? How can I understand you?
Right.
Um, and I think that's why we ended up becoming friends too, right? And I think that's why um, it's helped to be able to feel even safer to fail,
Right.
um,
Yes.
because I surrounded myself, whether I did it purposely or subconsciously, um, I surrounded myself with people who are very, very capable in not just understanding failure, but also in being able to help pick you up when you actually need it. Not that they're carrying you, not that they're
Right.
like, hey, here's like, I'm going to pay for the rest of your life. Not in that way, but in a way where it's like, hey, um, let's let's pick this apart. What does this failure actually look like to you?
Right.
Why is it so? Is it bigger in your head than it is in actuality?
Right.
And is there a simple solution? And I think kind of going back to what you said about how can we talk about this to people, and how we were talking about making sure that it's available for people
Yeah.
to understand failure.
Yeah.
I think this is part of it because they're what I think of when I'm thinking about failing around my friends and around family. It's like letting them down, sure, but also it's embarrassing. You know, there's
Right.
this embarrassment around failure where it's like, oh man, like I couldn't do this on my own, or I couldn't, X, Y, Z. Um, and I think being able to humble yourself continuously
Mm-hmm.
um, to the people that you care about and the people you actually that whose opinions actually matter to you. I think that kind of allows them to be able to look at things objectively in your life and be like, hey, your failure isn't that big, or
Right.
yeah, you failed, but this is a simple solution. Do it again.
Right.
And that humbling of yourself, it allows you to be like, oh, okay, you've helped me put on these training wheels, right? I'm slowly getting off of these 2 wheels and just sticking to the one in the center. Um, and I think that's where surrounding yourself with people who um, people who you know will be beneficial to you
Right.
rather than detrimental is an amazing thing. You should have variety, but in your close circle of friends, the people you keep closest to you, I think it's a good thing to be able to have the people who you not only aspire to be, but also who inspire you to continue being and going towards.
And I think that's perfectly said. And I do have to add that a lot of people tend to kind of get confused by that sentiment of, you
Mm,
have to surround yourself with people who are just like you. And then a lot of
yeah,
people start hanging out with people in the same career. And, it's
yeah,
like, yeah, networking wise, sure, that makes sense if you're in
mm-hmm,
entertainment, makes sense if you're, you know what I
mm-hmm,
mean, stuff like that. But they miss the big point. And it's people who are like you in a sense that you have the same motivators, right? You have this
mm-hmm,
mindset when it comes to doing things,
mm-hmm,
because that's the only
mm-hmm,
way that you can ensure that when you do fail, and you will, there will be
mm-hmm.
other people who will tell you, yo, I failed that last time, this is what I did, right?
Yeah,
It can really impart that knowledge on how am I going to get back up from this.
mm-hmm. That's
I
right.
think it's great. My goodness, who would have thought we talk about oh, it's funny, like I think it's great that like we were talking about this and we haven't even said our failures. I mean, I did. How
Yeah.
about you, Mr. Tight-lipped over
Well,
there? Like, excuse me.
no, I feel so much. I
Okay,
mean,
but
like,
okay, I do have to ask. What is that one
yeah.
that there's always that one thing in your life that you really fucked up that kind of,
Hmm.
how do I say this? Um, you you learn from it, right? Like, I mean, you learn
Hmm.
from a lot of things, right? But there's always one
Hmm.
event that kind of sets off this effect where you realize, you know what, I'm glad I failed that, because had that not
Hmm.
happened, I would not have really sought out the tools that I didn't know I was missing.
Hmm. I actually think we have been kind of touching around it. It doesn't seem like for me that there's a monumental moment of failure. It seems like it's a lifelong accumulation of the same failure for me,
Oh,
um, which is letting laziness get the best of me. Um,
shit. Okay, that's
and I
fucked.
think, yeah, right. And I
That's
think
hard.
that's it is hard because it's hard in the sense that you've had X amount of years with this habit so ingrained in you, um, and I think it's now a while ago. I remember in university as well, where I'd beat myself up so much um, for being lazy
Right.
and for not doing more. And to an extent, I still think in that way where I'm like, man, what am I doing with my time? Why am I watching this show when I could be improving my XYZ or skill? Um, I think it's come to a healthier place now where I'm able to see the laziness more as it's okay sometimes to relax and watch a show and do things that will make you happy. Um, but I think I'm now trying to, like, just as it was a lifelong failure, or seen as a lifelong failure,
Yeah.
it's now going to be a lifelong um, road to kind of that success of like
I like
no
that.
longer letting the laziness get a hold of me.
That's really good. That I
Yeah.
I like that.
yeah, it's it's hard, but it's also kind of it's this thing that I remember the first time you told me this. I was always like, ugh, I don't really believe it or like whatever. But you kept repeating it to me, and it actually stuck. Um, and now it's something that I try to practice as well. Is this mindfulness of being present, right? And that relates back to what you told me, which was um, you're so focused on the destination, but you need to understand it's the journey, right? That's such a cliche thing, obviously, but
But
it
it's
really is
true,
about.
isn't it?
It is. It's about like the thing is I get so caught up in the future,
Yeah,
right? Part of the whole business thing and freelance thing is like, what can I do for the future? How can I future proof everything?
right.
And then also the part that I grew up with, which is getting to know myself and other people around me. How can I reflect on the past to understand what I did wrong, how I can improve, X,
Right.
Y, Z, but then missing where I am now, which is like,
Exactly.
right? Because the future ends up being scary because it's like there's uncertainty.
Of
And then the
course.
past ends up feeling guilt ridden or whatever it is. Um, but then if you I'm finding like being able to take that moment to remember where you are. It's like, oh, I have a roof over my head. I'm able to afford rent this month. I'm able to eat. I'm able to wear clothes. I'm in a happy home. Like that kind of helps me um, remember like, okay, I'm all right now.
Mhm.
And obviously, this won't always apply because I think there are some people who aren't in great situations right
Of
now.
course. No, definitely.
Um, but I think for people who are kind of in that like COVID time where it's like, oh, I'm so stressed about the future, it's good to remember if you are okay right now, then you are okay.
I like that. Thank you for that message, Anthony. It is so true. And we always tend to forget that if we keep on looking towards the future and we forget that we are on this journey in the present right now, what happens when we get there? What happens when we
Mm,
finally attain that goal that we've been, working for? It's
yeah.
like we got the reward. Is it going to be, you know, as exhilarating when you finally get it,
Mm-hmm.
when you've completely disregarded everything you've been through? Or are
Mm-hmm.
you just gonna then, you know what I mean, right? And like a lot of people, they tend to not appreciate the journey, and that's why people tend to get greedy, I would say. Greedy
Mm,
in the sense
yeah.
that, no, I want more, no, I want more, no, I want more.
Yeah.
Part of the fact like, hey, dude, look at all these things you just achieved. Is it,
Yeah.
I don't care about
Yeah.
that. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
once you stop caring about the journey, how do you think this next journey is going to be for you? Because all you're going to be doing is mowing down the path, disregarding
Yeah.
everything that's long. You know what I mean, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that is what contributes to a lot of people's failures. Because
Mm-hmm.
essentially, while the future seems to be a great motivator,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of do things like so that I can get there, we forget that the greatest motivator is actually the president,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we get to learn a lot about ourselves and the people around us and
Mm-hmm.
learn how to, like the whole COVID situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
People who were not living in the present, myself included, would
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
have realized what kind of world this was now. I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
How did I deal with it from the first 2 months? I drank.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
did drugs. You know what I mean, right? And it's one of those things because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to do because I was like, well, shit, my future is on hold. How can I be performing
Yeah.
at bars? How can I do this? How can I make music? And because of
Mm-hmm.
that, and because I completely, it's not that I don't want to say I took things for granted, but
Mm-hmm.
I was more focused on, oh my God, I'm in a band. Oh my God, we're writing such good songs. I'm gonna get to when I win a Grammy or like when my song's on the radio. And I
Mm-hmm.
completely just did not take into account how great of a journey that was from where I started. Had I been in that state of mind where I kept myself present, my motivation would have been, oh, well, you know what? This is a new world. Let me see how I can try to make my music relevant with all of the tools that I've learned these past few years.
Yeah,
But no,
it's an
right?
opportunity. Yeah,
Exactly. But instead, I'm like, no, fuck it. Fuck. Like, there goes my music career. I'm just gonna drink. And that's what happened. Because there was no more
yeah,
motivator because my future seemed like it was done. The
yeah,
future changes. Right?
yeah.
You don't know what's gonna happen in the future. The only ever at least sort of certain is now.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's kind of what happened to, like, what you just said. I feel like that's so relatable to a lot of people.
Yeah, right?
Because like a lot of people have it's this thing of like, what's my 5-year goal, 10-year goal, right?
Right.
And the thing is, this pandemic, it kind of was this equalizer of sorts, where all of a sudden you couldn't really rely. Your goal couldn't be reached in that time. You got a curveball, right? A
Yeah, that's
setback.
it.
And the world is going to change. It might not change in a drastic way, but it's changed. Um, and I think that's what we talked about as well, where it's like, do you see this failure in the world as a reason to stay down, or do you pick yourself up? And I think part of what I was noticing midway through this pandemic, and I ended up writing about it too on my website, but part of what happened was it's suddenly people are now faced with themselves.
Yeah.
Suddenly now people can't be mowing down every moment until they reach their goal.
Right.
And that's a scary thing, because you spend long enough pretending that thing behind you isn't there,
Right.
right? And then you hit a wall and you're forced to turn around.
Yep.
That's going to be scary.
Yep.
But I also think that's kind of, I'm hoping that it will kind of help people be more real, or there will be more people who will be more genuine towards themselves and to others. I mean, it can also be the opposite. I know people are still partying and like
Oh yeah. I mean,
who are still getting drunk, right? But I'm hoping it's when we exit out of here, which I hope we get to, that we'll be able to meet some real cool people who've done a lot of work on themselves. And if it doesn't change that we can't get out, I'm hoping that we can start doing that now.
Yeah.
Create, I don't know, electronic interweb meetups. Oh God, I sound old.
No, but you know what? It's, the gist of what you're saying is the fact that hopefully people start to realize that maybe one of the best motivators for themselves is looking at themselves in the mirror right now and actually being able to stay in the present and ask themselves, what am I like at this very moment? And what is my life like at this very moment? And, just stay there. Just stay in the now. Damn.
It's a powerful thing.
It is. Yep. It truly is.
That's the kind of stuff that will like either send you spiraling downwards.
Yep.
Or it will lift you up.
Exactly, right? But always remember, even though it sends you spiraling downwards, what makes you think there ain't no trampoline to catch you to propel you back up, right? So we always have to just stay up, guys. We just gotta stay within ourselves at this very moment. Because once you lose that, that's when you just But no, honestly, this was great. I really hope that I think we touched upon a lot of things that pertains to motivation, right? I know that the main thing we really want to focus on was that, but it's a lot, and this is like what I said in the very beginning of the show. a lot of people don't realize just how important motivation is, and just, just because they just throw that word around like it's nothing, like it's just whatever, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like people make fun of like motivational speakers, like, oh my God, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go motivate you. And it's like, yeah, but it's more to it than just telling somebody, good job, you can do this. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually changing the way your
Yeah.
brain works. It's rewiring your whole entire
Yeah.
being. So I
Yeah.
really hope for you guys who are listening to this right now or watching us right now, you kind of learned a thing or two about your own motivators or demotivators, or the people that are around you, the people you
Mm-hmm.
surround yourself with. If you had parents, if you grew up in a, I'm going to say this right now, not all families are like this, but if you grew up in a toxic family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I was going to say toxic Filipino culture because that is a thing, right? Instead of harboring all of that, I would say, I don't want to say hate. I know y'all don't hate on people, but I have come across a few people who, anyway, my point is, why don't you let that motivate you guys into maybe kind of dismantling the toxicity of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's use all of the pain and all of the unpleasant experiences we've had into a motivating factor for us to make sure that it doesn't happen to the people we know or people we love in the future, right? I feel like it's one of the greatest things about this. Turning pain into motivation. It's like the gym. Maybe it's why I like the shit, like my muscles hurt. Oh my God, it's like, it's gonna grow.
Stephen, you've become a motivational speaker now.
LOL, can you freaking imagine me?
Yeah.
No way. But, I will
Yeah.
leave it to the professionals. I am just here dealing with my own shit. But honestly, I just want to say thank you for being on the show,
Oh,
Anthony. You are just, this is why we're friends. Guys, again, surround yourself with people that
wow.
is going to help you develop in some ways. I mean, I feel less stupid hanging out with Anthony.
Wow.
Very
That's
smart
such a nice
individual.
compliment.
It is, you've always been such a smart one. You've always been so insightful. You're so young too. That's the funniest part, and it just goes to show it really, age is nothing but a number. It really depends on the experiences. Even though you're immature at certain things, but whatever. Say it for another time.
That's true.
This is not about a show. No, we're not gonna talk about it on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for acknowledging. But seriously,
Mm-hmm.
again, guys, Anthony Lau, everybody. Hey, you want to plug your business? What do you do again? You are a
I'm a studio. So if you're looking for any kind of creative work, I'm thinking of doing some cool stuff soon. So you can find me on Instagram, Antlau Studios. That's ANT. That's like the ant.
not your
LAU.
auntie, but an aunt.
Nope. Ant
Don't
Lao
worry.
Studios.
I will have his information up on the description for the video and podcast. Again,
Yeah.
before we go,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Anthony. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you later.
Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
if you want to be on the show, if you have any questions for Anthony or myself, you can always email me, stevendiego@hotmail.com. That's with a PH, okay? And it'll also be on the information we show. This has been Breaking Down the Breakdown. I hope that this was super eye-opening, super enlightening for most of you. If you disagree with anything we said, we apologize, but that is just how we think of things. And, you can agree to disagree. I'm not going to say you're wrong either. I mean, sure, whatever. But for those who did agree, again, reach out to us if you have any input at all. What about your own experiences, right? Thank you again. This is Steven Diego, and I'll see y'all next time. Always remember, be compassionate.
Bye.
Bye-bye.